We've got quite the excellent VOD review for you today because our tank player plays a host of different characters and a bunch of different teachable moments will be scattered throughout, so I think you'll have the opportunity to learn a lot from this. But first, I want to shout out how you can submit your own gameplay to be reviewed. There's two ways to do it. The first is to email in to youroverwatchplays@gmail.com, upload to YouTube a ranked loss where you thought you played well but lost anyway, or just weren't sure why you lost at all. Even if I don't use your gameplay in a video, I respond to many of these emails with at least a short response of something you should work on to improve your gameplay. But we get more submissions than I can respond to, though I do try my best. The other way you can submit is by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button to become a Your Overwatch supporter. This supports the channel directly, but also gives you access to direct and near instant response to review your gameplay. And for members, I go much more in depth and respond as fast as I can. If you already are a member, the best way I found for us all to communicate is by going to our community tab where you'll get access to member exclusive posts. So head over to the community tab on our YouTube page to submit your gameplay there. But that's it for the intro. Let's jump into reviewing this gameplay. The first attack onto A seemed to go well enough, though there is quite a bit to nitpick, but we'll get back to that later. Attacking onto B is where things get more tricky. The fight gets hectic, which is really going to stress your Overwatch competency. So far in this gameplay, I've already noticed about 10 different things that this player can improve, and I'm going to highlight them here for you so that you can try to look at your own gameplay with the same kind of critical eye. Let's back up all the way to the start. Improving at any hero in Overwatch is all about maximizing the little things that are going to get you more value. So brawling in this right-hand room, we want to remember a few things. Try not to shoot your beam while missing, because ammo efficiency leads to your damage over time and ult charge rate to a high degree. When a Rein pins in on close range and he has armor health, you'll want to shoot an alt fire first because armor is weaker to a burst of damage than it is to tick damage. You guys get him low anyway, but if we combine both of these elements, we could have made even more value in this room than we did otherwise. A few seconds later, we notice another bad habit. Our teammate is beginning to get rezzed by Mercy, but we bubble him while he's still immune. Timing these bubbles is going to be quite important, especially as we get onto B, because what you want to do with Zarya bubbles is extend the life duration of the target you're giving it to as long as possible. And there's a few ways to manipulate that. In this instance, with McCree getting rezzed, you don't want to bubble him until the immortality effect of res wears off. Because if the enemy can shoot and burn the bubble on him while he's getting that effect, well, you're not extending that life, right? You're overlapping them. And this principle applies further to other targets that you want to give it to on your team. For example, a tank character like Reinhardt, you want him to take a bit of damage first, be called out as a focus fire target, then bubble him. Now, what I'm advocating you to do is harder than just bubbling whenever you see an enemy taking damage, but that timing is crucially important and can save your teammate's life. Because look here, our Reinhardt is stuck at the bottom of the stairs. Yes, he's low health, but while he has a shield and he isn't swinging, he doesn't need the extra life from your bubble. Bubbling him now will give you charge, but the way to truly get more value out of Zarya is to be extending the lifespan of your teammates while also getting charge. So here, as he starts to retreat, we don't want to bubble him until the last moment where his health starts to go down, giving our healer something to do. Him taking damage in that instance is good. Then he gets called out as the focus fire target. The damage comes through. That's when you want to bubble. But instead, the bubble's too early when his shield's up and he dies. We do res him, but trust me, as you start to eke out all of these little advantages, it's the difference between being gold and plat easily, because they do stack up over time. This is how you see statistical distributions throughout the ranks, where players at a given rank will simply just get more value on average across all these different metrics because they do all of these little things in combination. The team fight goes poorly. We obviously miss grab. I think everybody can realize that. But what I want to point out is a bit of a mistake here on the retreat. When in a retreat like this as Zarya, there's no reason not to hurl some alt fires at this enemy Reinhardt to force him to put his shields up, or to benefit from just sneaking in a bit of damage to help charge your next graviton. But remember, your alt fire applies knockback. Last time I checked, maybe they removed it, but it's pretty important to get some of that distance control onto the enemy as they're coming in to close the distance on you. Doing so could have kept the Reinhardt off you for that slight second in time for your teammate to come in and heal you, keeping your charge and just upping the entire tempo and economy of your team's overall resources. Even though you do get rezzed, the fight happens at a haphazard pace, whereas if you were alive with high charge and bubbles churning, things could have gone differently. At this point, you've already lost too many members, and whenever you're in a losing fight situation as Zarya, the goal is to gain charge, farm ult, and keep your charge by not dying, so don't commit in deeper there. So far, we've mostly talked about mechanical efficiency things, but this team fight will help us show an example of structuring the team fight as a tank, or rather, the lack thereof. It's pretty simple to see that we got flanked and died here, but what could have our hero done? Well, this is going to reveal another bad habit. We're pressuring onto point from the stairs side. Most of our team is here. We don't want to use our bubble just to get charge here. Instead, we would prefer to gain positional advantage onto the map by using that resource and give the enemy no choice but to shoot us. Standing in line of fire at a poke distance, hoping to get charge, is a low value Zarya play. It's still somewhat value, but it's low. Because we burn our personal to do this, we're stuck standing in a circle getting flanked. Instead, what do we want to do here? What we want to do is hold on to Zarya bubble until we're starting to take damage, and while we draw aggro onto us by positioning more aggressively. You have lots of health. You can get healed. You have a get out of jail free card with personal bubble. Because of that, you want to go get on a target that you can meaningfully kill. So leave these tanks altogether, start pressing past him, either by literally Wing past him as long as he can't charge you, or by wrapping around and just going and taking this open space somewhere. You do need Ryan to W with you as well, but this is why you save a bubble for him. I think what happened here is because we knew an enemy was flanking, we kind of froze with indecision, but realize when this McCree is way off in no man's land, that means he can't shoot anybody for seconds if you push on to the point like I'm prescribing. But instead, because we hang around and just scare him away, he has time to come back to the center of the team fight, join his team, and we haven't gained any ground in the midst of this. Now, the truth is, the team fight looks like it's going fine after that, but not really. Forcing our Mercy to res us in a spot we had no business dying in, just because we wasted our durability cooldown, means that she wasn't able to help the Genji or the rest of the offense, and you weren't around to help focus fire. Killing things quickly and efficiently is what's required to cap on 2 CP, but alongside that is also sustaining the key members of your team, notably the ways that you can kill the enemy. We're chasing down kills, which is great, but when the enemy pops grab flux, as soon as you hear that sound, nothing is more valuable to you than looking to bubble the key teammate. Both our main tank and McCree get caught in the grab flux, and we have to use bubble to save one of them. A huge amount of damage comes on the slam from Sigma's ultimate, so it's one of the highest value bubbles we can get, because remember, our goal with the projected barriers is to extend our teammate's life, and what better way to do that than literally counter an ultimate, at least on one member. I think it would become a bit debatable which teammate you should save. Is it the McCree? Is it the Reinhardt? At higher levels of play, I would suggest the damage always, because tanks typically have fast runbacks, and McCree's got more damage to deal with the oncoming flankers. He's one of the best DM characters in the game, and as long as you have Mercy to heal him, he's got stun, you can kind of insta-kill the stragglers as they come along, but maybe Reinhardt has shatter. There's lots of other considerations you can make, but not even entering that as the most important play for you to make there is going to end up losing that push. And you may have lost it anyway, but you see as you start to add up all of these little things, it snowballs into not having enough pushing power to finish capturing the point. This next team fight's a good example of making the right read. Team goes in, the Brig has rally, but we actually press W this time, get on the enemy, and it's looking promising. But remember, we did lose a teammate in the mix of this, which is going to make a lot of this harder. At the start, this looks like a winnable team fight, and all of a sudden, it just all crumbles again. How is this possible? Well, it's very important that in these chaos scenarios that we find the best target. And even if you kill something, it doesn't mean you are shooting the best target. It's a crazy thing to say, but let me explain. You and Ryan get in on the brawl, the shatter comes down, you focus the Brig, that's great. Winston jumps into your backline and he's low, so you finish him off. But notice something about where you're standing. Do you need to be this close to shoot this Winston? No. Both you and the Reinhardt overcompensate for the dive the Winston makes. And I think this is much easier to see in the overhead view, because if you could shoot him from a few more meters away, you can more quickly return to the relevant fight after the Winston dies. Once you turn around, you realize there's not a lot going on, but what's your goal here? At this point, we want to cram our tanking into the face of whatever's contesting and use our bubbles to sustain and keep the brawl going. But the decisions we make here burn our ability to do that by bubbling ourselves and our Genji that are off doing not much. And because of that, we're forced to play super defensively. It's so important that you hold onto your bubbles until they're actually going to get value. Because you burn them there, whether they get charged or not, you're not able to use the space they're supposed to provide, which allows the McCree to zone you out, to have no sustain, and all of this just takes so long that even with the kills you had, because you burn your resources without taking space with them, you don't have any ground to speak of. We're still basically right on the staircase this entire time, which means our team is always fighting from a back foot position. And another mistake here, worrying about where this McCree is as he runs away just forces you to have downtime, which you never want. Zoning him out is great, but again, in the windows where he's flanking around, he's out of position. He doesn't have anything to do until he gets back onto the high ground, which where you can shoot him again. Instead of chasing him around and worrying about his flanks, play on the front line and go at the things stalling the objective. Now here on the defense, our hero is playing Reinhardt, which you just can't play Reinhardt on this high ground. Shielding this does nothing. This isn't 2016. If you wanted to stay here, you'd have to be Orisa, but our hero actually seems to know that as he goes in aggro at the team to clean up the enemy as they start to trickle out and spread out on the map. Now, the only problem is this kind of play from Reinhardt is super predictable, and we begin to commit some major Reinhardt sins in this gameplay, the first of which being standing out on open angles. No, terrible. The reason why you can't play right on the high ground there is the same reason why you can't play right on the low ground in the middle of everything. You're letting the enemy deal damage to you when you can't do anything. This is what I refer to as face tanking. You're just putting your face out in the open to get shot. And where does Ryan actually want to be? Well, on corners of the map, punishing the enemy as they come through with hammer swings, then having a shield to protect himself. You might say, well, that doesn't shield the team and everything else, but you had a shield out there and they still snuck in damage to kill your Mercy anyway. Forever ago, Ryan lost the job of being the guy who constantly puts a shield in front of his team. He's not even any good at that in comparison to the other tanks, even if they do get nerfed. His job is brawling on corners. Now, we switch off to Wrecking Ball, and I'll note that our hero did so with 60% ult to Earth Shatter. And against Zarya Sigma, Earth Shatter has a moderate difficulty to land, but it is a team fight winning ultimate. And I'll note, Reinhardt's run back to point isn't too bad either. And to be real, unless you see your team get multiple kills on A, you're not really running back to point with Wrecking Ball. It's not going to happen. It's too far of a distance to go. But swapping the hero attempts to play for the win rather than settle for the tie. But I think it's pretty clear it wasn't going to happen. So here on Wrecking Ball, we notice our hero has quite a few issues with the basic mechanics of the character. Really important tips here is to remember you do not have to rush your grapple. Make sure you line them up to actually allow you to arc. If you attach at too low of an angle, you're not going to get anywhere and have these really poor swings that don't give you any momentum and limit your ability to abuse the powerful midair movement that Overwatch has. Only swing from a low angle if you want to go straight. And the weird thing is, Ball Winston is so incredible against Zarya Sigma. I can't stress it enough. This map is massive. Those two tanks have huge mobility. If you stayed on that pick, granted, you don't seem very comfortable with the character, so maybe you have to switch it anyway, but that would farm the enemy setup. Because you have so much mobility, you're very likely to go in and trade something and then have fast run back out of spawn, incredible stall on the objective. As long as you play active enough, you really don't need a shield here. A teammate's like, well, we need a shield to hide behind, but how well did that work out for you on first point? The Mercy was trying to stand behind your shield and got shot anyway, right? Like, there's no permanent shield from Reinhardt. It's just not a thing in 2019. But Ryan Winston is still an incredible low-ranked tanked duo. Anyway, you play kind of similar, go in with the Winston, and fundamentally, the play style is still the same for this map. You want to go at the enemy and trade out before they get onto the point or can set up a clean ult exchange. And for the last real team fight of the game, we attempt to do a very cheeky shatter. I don't hate this. The enemy projected both their barriers out. If you time this slightly differently, maybe you do catch like the whole team, carry the game, and get the tie. But once we try to pin the Brig and we fail, the enemy starts to focus us. Then our Ana lands a massive Bionade. When this hits, you have to make the read that you have amp healing and the enemy has none, which that means your instant reaction needs to be W and swing, not retreat. Perhaps not even to brawl the Brig and Reaper, who we kind of don't want to be fighting, but we can definitely fight when they're antied, but just to not get to the center of the point. Retreating back to the center of the point is terrible for us because it allows us to be surrounded. Instead, you want to do what's called closing the door with Reinhardt. If we immediately start pushing towards whoever's left in the choke point, we can land hammer swings on this Mercy right here. And coincidentally, because the enemy Sigma is trying to ult our supports, if he wanted to hit us with the Sig ult, it would have been much harder when we're so spread out. The decision we made meant that we were only going to be able to shield for the rest of the fight. Whereas when hectic fights break out like this, you kind of have no choice other than take the best brawl you can and try to kill something before you die as Rein. Rein's just kind of a weak hero right now, but if you understand when you have to go in deep just to play in a spot that's good for you, you hopefully can do critical damage to set up for your retake, even when after you die. Because retaking on this map is so easy. I mean, we saw the enemy do it over and over again, right? How are they able to do that? Well, by trading out kills in the first break of the fight, not by trying to sustain. 2CP has this principle where I like to call it horde mode, get an early taste of what that Left 4 Dead co-op gameplay is going to feel like in Overwatch 2, where the attacking team has to withstand multiple waves of respawns, and the defense doesn't win by trying to sustain as long as they can with one defense. They actually need to thin out the attack so that their next defense has a chance. Because of course, stall in Overwatch is incredibly strong, but it's a lot weaker the more resources the enemy have left. And the last tip I want to mention before we go with today's video, you may have noticed a few times in this gameplay, the frame rate dropped. I don't know if that's just because of the recording, but a huge tip for everybody out there playing on PC, do whatever you can to increase your frame rate. Drop your settings as low as they can go if you have to. And if you have the means to do so, of course, upgrading your equipment goes a long way with this game because so much of Overwatch is just speed and reaction times. So if at any point your computer is struggling, you're just going to miss out on value and you're going to be capped by your hardware, which you never want to see happen. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and BlizzCon meetups. If you're going to BlizzCon, check us out there. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.